Hello and welcome to the CDAO Magazine interview series. I'm Jeff Strane with SHI International, and we are partnering with CDAO Magazine, MIT CDIQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Besa Bauta, Chief Data and Analytics Officer at the Office of Data and System Improvement for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Hello, Besa.
Hi, Jeff. How are you today?
Great. So top of mind, what are examples about how digital transformation can impact either your organization, it could be your constituents, it could be your state, or it could be something on a national or even an international basis? What are your thoughts there?
I always think of, transforming as surviving and evolving. Either you do or you die.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. That's my motto. If you don't evolve, then you're obviously behind the pack. So evolution requires constant change and updating. So when I came in here, I was just, thinking about state systems and government systems and how sometimes they're so entrenched. They're not as agile. It costs, there's processes, and I love this new word. My favorite word now is red tape, or just new processes, as they say.
Yeah.
And you have something much more monolithic. It's harder to move. But the challenge, I think it is, how do you take that up, take the elephant and sort of break it into chunks that you don't have to move the whole thing. But if I start moving one or two things and kind of oiling that machine, then maybe I could have this, large system kind of move or tilt even slightly. And if that achieves, a return on investment 5 or 10% or whatever, it's better than where it was. It makes the organization much more agile and adapt to change, because in a way they're being shifted and they're being forced to sort of move and adapt.
Yeah. So how do you integrate AI into that digital transformation? It's very complicated. There are a lot of different ways to do it, and there's both the change management issue and there's a technology issue.
When I think of artificial intelligence, I always think of augmented decision making, right? We're so reliant on our phones, and I'm so reliant on Google that hopefully Google has the maps mapped out correctly. But I've had cases where it was sending me in the wrong direction because it wasn't updated. That's why you have those cars going around and, updating, has the road changed? Are there any closures? What does this really look like? So when we think of artificial intelligence, we talk about a lot of different buzzwords. But in the end, a lot of organizations really haven't implemented this organization-wide. There's plenty of use cases, where you're trying to figure out, what else do I need to do? How else can I address this problem where, obviously there's a risk, and how can I get ahead of that? And that's where I think some of these technologies can better support, not only decision-making, but also being ahead of the curve. In my field in healthcare, so you do see proliferation as far as what I call augmented intelligence technologies. Augmented because we're using artificial intelligence, in a lot of ways to augment clinical decision making. I never want to take away our clinicians or our social workers or our mental health professionals' decision making. But I want to be able to augment their skills and expertise to, not only identify potential risk, but get ahead of those risks. So in a way to improve, not only the social determinants of health, but health well-being of that patient and client. One good example is that with different types of radiologic AI, they're able to pick up, potential diseases, or if a child or a parent has, progressive mental health, just by voice recognition. And we've noticed that these technologies are extremely accurate. I'm not sure, sometimes we know behind the hood, what is, this algorithm picking up in a lot of ways that the human decision, the clinician is not picking up. And I'm not saying that these technologies are any better than our decision making. I think people are just as flawed in their own decision making. We do a lot of autonomic, decision making from our gut rather than collecting all the evidence. And then we're relying a lot on these technologies, as an extension of our decision making in a lot of ways. So I think for me, the way you would implement very carefully, number one. But number two, I think what's really important if you're going to use any sort of technology, and this doesn't even have to be artificial intelligence, what is it that you're trying to achieve? I think, simple question like that. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Can you achieve that with the current, tools?
Yeah. Well, you being a leader in data analytics and your COVID example, you're probably in a position that you can kind of share your experiences being on the forefront of such a pandemic. What was your takeaways?
Pandemics are always scary.
Mhm.
I remember sitting at the table, and actually my daughter is in public health, and she's like, Mom, this is a pandemic. We should go buy more N95 masks. And
Mhm.
I just poo-pooed it away. And my background is also in public health. I've been trained in epidemiology. And I didn't see it. I didn't see the tidal wave that was coming. So now I'm re-examining when she was mentioning, but you missed it and you're trained in this. Why did you miss it? I guess I wasn't looking at the right indicators. In a way, I was very confident that this is not going to be the cataclysmic event that it was.
Mhm.
So sometimes overconfidence, plays into that. Number two, I think it's fear in a lot of ways, even for me, that with any change underlying with that, when we say transformation or change, it's really hard to change habits. Underneath that, there's fear. What will it look like? What will it be? What if it fails? If I invested in an AI technology and spend $1 million, if it fails, what would that look like? So from my vantage from the pandemic, I mean, it's a really good case example of just life in a lot of ways and how the human interacts, and with cataclysmic change in a lot of ways. And that could extend into our personal lives as well as, as a technologist in the work that I do in the technology sphere.
So during that, how did you create a culture within your organization that unlocked the innovation potential, the implementation capabilities, and the citizen-facing applications within your organization?
I think number one is creating safety to experiment, safety within the team, that if everything else goes awry, that, you have a foundation, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You needed that foundation before you could do any sort of self-actualization out there, or anything else. So for me and my teams is sort of creating that safety that if they do experiment, that they're not going to break the house. It's okay. Even if they do break the house, that there's like, forward learning curve as part of that process. So I think that's really. Second is, hearing my team when things are not working. Sometimes we ignore the obvious, just like when I ignored the pandemic. Well, I don't think this is going to happen, so I don't have to run out and get toilet paper. And then we had toilet gates where, we didn't have enough toilet paper. Things like that, where you don't have the foresight, or you don't think that, all the dials point that way, and you're like, oh, I don't know if it's going to go that way, but that's where the road leads. And sometimes we ignore, the very obvious signs in a lot of ways. So that's number two, allowing my team and others to sort of say, this is really not going in the right direction. I think we need to course correct and pivot. Even though we spent all this money, I think that if we continue, it's really not, the way we need to do that. So allowing folks to course correct as well.
So it sounds like when you have resistance or you see a problem, you have a serious issue with communication. Is that something that you champion yourself within your organization?
I try, Jeff. It's really hard. Sometimes I forget to communicate in a digital world. We're so stuck in our phones and our Zoom. And I think our communication skills have atrophied over time. It's, I've noticed that myself, and I'm like, human, have to talk, shake hands. Do I shake hands or fist bump? Do I have a mask, not have a mask? Like, how do I communicate in a lot of ways like a robot? So I think that's important, trying to figure out all of those things. And, how is it for other team members? How is it for, external folks that we're working with, and kind of navigate all, learn as you go. So that's sort of my new thing, adapt. So everything is, agile, and agile is another buzzword, basically is just adapt as you go.
Incredible. Thank you very much. I want to thank you, Besa, for joining me today. And please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jeff. It was a pleasure talking to you.